Hello, everyone. This is the award-winning To Hull and Back podcast, proudly sponsored by Kingfisher Fish and Chips and Old Zoological Bar in Hull. Perfect places to go this week as Hull Fair is on. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and tonight to discuss a pretty disastrous time in Norwich the other day, I've got Ant and Joe. So, bar the football, how are you doing?
Good, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Good.
It was a double dose of disaster on Saturday, as I was explaining to you guys. I didn't watch the first half, and that's why I didn't do my own sort of reaction to it, because I didn't see the point in talking about 2 goals in a first half I hadn't seen, because I was watching the under-18s in the PDL Cup, and they took the lead after 40 seconds, and then they lost the game more than Doncaster won the game. And on the other pitch, playing at the same time, the under-16s drew 2-2. So, as Coxie says, we are a little bit back down to reality after Norwich.
Yeah. It was a bit of a strange match because I think I can understand why some people on social media, I saw that they didn't think it was a 4-0 performance and that actually they played relatively well. Equally, I think that's true in a sort of offensive sense, that I didn't feel like we didn't have a threat all game, but it could have been about, rather than 4-4, could have been about 8-2, maybe 9-3, something like that. Because I think defensively, I've never, since maybe the Wigan match when we lost 8-0, I've never seen us be that bad, to be honest. And how do you see that? Because it was a bit disjointed between defence and attack.
It was, but I think even throughout the 3 wins that we had, there were similar patterns of play that we all knew that, that was said a few times even in those games, that if those 3 sides were better and had better quality players up top, then we probably wouldn't have won those games either. We're quite lucky that we were against wasteful teams that were down in the rut kind of thing. So we knew that the worry would be when we played a decent team with decent players that we might sort of get unravelled quite easily. I had a feeling that Norwich might be one of those days, and it turned out it was. And like we say, the thing is we didn't. It is really weird because I understand what you're saying. We didn't necessarily play badly. It's not like we turned over, and just got absolutely pummeled 4-0. We did offer something going forwards, which is the important thing I think that we need to focus on, is that we are genuinely offering some form of offensive threat in games. We are going to score a lot of goals. I think the concern is when you play against sides like Norwich that are really good, especially at home, that maybe there needs to be a bit more of a conservative setup, because I don't know, it may be naivety to be playing so open against a team that has so many good attacking players, because it's all well and good playing this offensive football, but if you're going to concede 4 goals, it means you've got to score 5 just to win the game. And it's a bit of a mountain to climb when you've got that kind of approach, and when you've got high flying Sunderland and Burnley up next. It could be two more quite painful games. So, but the thing is Walter's not going to change his style. He's already said this is the way he plays every single game. He could play against Man City, it could be Boston United, he'll play the exact same way. So I guess we've just got to strap in, and we'll probably get hammered by the teams above us, but we might beat the teams below us and just finish safely in mid-table. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I was just about to say it was pretty much exactly the same as the opening 20 minutes against QPR, where I feel like they'd had about 17 shots after about 30 or 40 minutes. Panda made some great saves, and he made some great saves against Norwich, but I realised we haven't actually talked about the QPR win on the podcast, have we? So that was good, but pretty much one game where we played well going forward, bad defensively, and that team didn't take their chances, and then played exactly the same way on Saturday against Norwich, and they did take their chances.
Yeah, it's exactly what Ant said. I think we will be fine this season, but it's tactically naive to think you can make a sustained push for the playoffs over a full 46-game season when against teams like Norwich who can punish you, you're trying to get Oscar Zambrano, who is a good player, I really like him, to do the work of 3 midfield players. And he's been called up for international duty. Great. I hope that for his sake, his time with Ecuador, if he plays, he doesn't have to do as much sort of cleaning up work as he has to do for our midfield. Because when Malum, Slater, Palmer, whoever's playing, push up that high.
Hmm.
And when we get hit on the counter, Zambrano is exposed and the back four are exposed and Panda is exposed. And it's impossible to ask him alone to do the work of three players. I think, to be honest with you, if I was in Tim Walter's shoes, I'd have Zambrano as the sitter. It'd be either Alzate, well, no, definitely Alzate, but we seem to be stuck in this cycle where one midfield player has a great game off the bench, so they start, but then they have a poor game, and the player who was dropped for them comes on off the bench and has a great game. Malem, Slater, and Simons came on and started for Zambrano in the week. It's strange. So for me, I think our best midfield is Zambrano, Alzate, and people will call me out on this, Casey Palmer or whatever, but I don't think Casey Palmer is in our best midfield from the start of a game because he's more about ball retention and stuff like that. I think he's better when he's subbed on. And I think if he's fit, you've got to put Abdush centrally. Against Sheffield United, the only game he's played centrally, although we were dire in that game, he had more of the ball than he's had in any other game. So I think you've got to put him centrally. I know he missed out with the weekend due to some sort of leg muscle injury, but I think we've got to try him centrally again with someone like Alzate alongside him. And I can't remember who put the comment up because it's been taken down, but Puerta, yeah, it's an awkward one that I said at the weekend. I can see Gustavo Puerta ending up a little bit like James Furlong of last season, i.e. brought in a little bit of noise around him. Okay, this guy, Furlong, highly rated by Brighton, did well at Motherwell. Puerta, highly rated at Leverkusen. And then the manager gives them this grace period, this settling in period where they don't play. And then Furlong came into the team and gets injured. Sadly, I think it's just written in the stars for Gustavo Puerta to wait ages for his debut, come in, do quite well, but then pick up an injury and we never see him again.
It's like half the players we've signed in the last 10 years or so.
Something like that. But I think it's unfortunate, but I think that's the funny feeling I get. I really want to be wrong, but it's just a funny feeling I get.
I think that back four, although before we discuss that, I don't necessarily think it's a reason to bring Giles straight back in. I think Drame had a very poor game against Norwich, but that back four looks relatively settled, and I imagine that now Hughes is in, despite him making an error that led to a goal. I don't know whether that was necessarily his fault, and I think he played quite well up until then. That back four is probably going to be Drame, Hughes, Jones, and Kyle going forward, and I think maybe, of course, we saw Pedro score, but the wingers are definitely going to be Mullen and Bellumi. But it's that midfield that they need to sort out. I think Puerta is probably more of a defensive player, so I'm not surprised that Zambrano would be ahead of him. But Ant, do you agree with Joe about what that best midfield three is? Because I think that's probably where we're a bit undecided because there's so many options.
I don't know, and I don't think Walter knows. I think that's the problem. Because we keep chopping and changing the team. It's hard to be consistent when there's no consistency in the starting 11. I know rotation is an important aspect of modern football, but rotating just for rotation's sake rather than for freshness or injury concern or anything is sometimes hindrance more than a positive. But I mean, I think away from home, I'd like to see us play with two sitters. I think Zambrano needs to be alongside somebody else, and then we just have a box-to-boxer running in front of them trying to offer that support, because especially at games like Norwich away, you'd like to have seen a bit more protection for the back four, especially when players like Hughes or Maka or Jones are pushing up as they are. But yeah, the midfield's an interesting one because we know how good Omer can be. We've not quite seen it this season. Granted, he's been on the wing the majority of the time. Alzate's come in and looked class, but we haven't really seen him for a long enough period of time, I don't think, to give an accurate judgment on how good he'd be from the start. Zambrano, I think, has probably been our most consistent midfielder since his debut. I think he hasn't really put a foot wrong since he's played. I think he's really classy, composed. I really like him as a player. Malum, I think, started out really well and has started to feign off a bit, but I don't know if that's because of the chopping and change on the left-hand side where he tends to play and he's got, he's always, the players he's next to is constantly different. It's just, it is a transition period. It's just one of those. Eventually we will stumble upon the three in midfield that give us the best platform. I think, you'd have put money at the beginning of the season on Slater being one of those in there, but he doesn't seem to really be, barring the Stoke game. I don't really think we've had much of a positive impact from Slater in most games. But no, I mean, we've got a lot of depth there, which is the good thing. The fact that we're having this discussion is in itself a blessing, because it means that we have, those early season worries that we didn't really have any depth. We've definitely got it now, especially in the midfield. So eventually we'll stumble upon something that works. I think at the minute, at home games, you'd probably want your more offensive midfielders on there. I think I'd like to see Palmer come in, maybe alongside Omer with Zambrano sitting, and then just rotate that away from home. Maybe have Zambrano alongside Alzate, for example, just both playing a bit deeper. Alzate to keep that possession going, and Zambrano to do the dirty work and win the ball back. So you can even play Burns alongside Zambrano if you wanted a bit more beef in that CDM.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really like Burns.
He's done that, hasn't he?
Yeah,
we tried Burns as a CDM, didn't we? As a defensive
we did,
midfielder.
but against a really good Sheffield United side. And he's obviously naturally a centre half. They put him in there to add a bit of height and physicality. You can see why he did it, but obviously Zambrano's the better option there. But I think playing alongside two defensive midfielders, especially against the better teams, would maybe make more sense. But I would like to see Burns at centre half at some point as well, because I think he's wasted in midfield sometimes. But if you're wanting a bit of extra stability, it'd be worth a try, I suppose, with two defensive midfielders. But we'll see. Volta will get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we could play about. Well, I don't know how many combinations that is, but it's probably hundreds of combinations of midfields we could have, or maybe not hundreds, but we do have a lot. I'd like to see Puerta play ahead of Burns and CDM, I'm sure. I think Burns probably just played CDM because he was on loan at Man City from the Stevenage last year. Maybe Stevenage don't have that many technically gifted players. I'm not too sure. Any Stevenage fans listening, you can write me in the comments if you want. I doubt there's going to be any. I think I'd like to see Zambrano playing, and I think Alzate. If you take it back to the COVID season when we won the league, I always like to do that. I'd say on corners, you need to outswing your free kicks, in-swing your corners. Volta doesn't do that. And you need a proper six, like a Zambrano, like Smallwood. Doherty can do everything, like maybe Slater can, or Alzate, I reckon, could, and a proper number 10, Unhuman, pushing on. So as long as we do that, I think that'd be fine. But yeah, I think Hughes will probably start the next match. I wouldn't be too surprised if Alzate could. I think Kamara had a pretty decent cameo off the bench. Did you? I mean, Joe, you saw the second half. Maybe it's a bit easier to have a bit of space when the other team is 3 or 4 goals up, but Kamara did quite well. Should have had an assist, maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. My little tagline is João Pedro no go. And look, it was nice to see him get on the pitch. I love I love it, and it's embarrassing in equal measure, really, in terms of flinging your arms around and making that much of a fuss sort of about it.
Got a yellow card, didn't he?
Yeah, the replays are a little bit inconclusive for me, because the replays we saw, and I've not watched it back yet, was from so zoomed out, and they were just bang, 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 bang from 3-4 different angles. You couldn't really tell whether it hit bicep or shoulder / upper chest / sleeve, which is easier for me to say.
/ face.
Sleeve.
Well, bear with me a moment, but I'm going to try and bring up the away kit image on the screen, because I think that demonstrates my point. So carry on.
Okay. There's look, it's nice to see him get some minutes, and he looked a bit of a handful. He nearly scored ultimately.
His movement was good.
His movement was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, to bring it back round to Kamara, I was saying to someone sent me a message saying he's worth 2 Liam Millers. And I sort of get it. Miller can move about and, he can just move about sometimes and look a little bit sort of disinterested. And then there are other times he can turn it on and still be a player there. And look, he's very sort of one-dimensional, Miller. He's afraid to use that left foot. Yeah. So as a defender, he's quite easy to defend against because you've just got to stop him cutting inside and then you're golden. Kamara came on, and although he's not on his favoured right side, he's not as one-dimensional as Miller when he's on that right side. So he added a little bit of jeopardy into the performance. And I'd like to see more of him, but at the minute on the right, Balumi was a standout again, so Kamara's not going to get in on the right. So whether it's he drops Miller and gets Kamara in on the left, I know Portsmouth fans will be sort of saying, what are you doing? We tried him on the left and he was nowhere near as good as he was for us on the right. But if it's the way he gets in the team and we get to see a little bit of him, then we have to do it ultimately, because if we can't get anything out of Liam Miller in a game, we have to shuffle things around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one. I know we had that sort of debate last year with Zaruri as well, who seemed to be just so effective on one side, but we didn't want to move Philogene out of his better position, although I think we did for a bit. To go back to the Pedro goal, I think the rule for handballs is the sleeve line. So great for podcast format, of course, but if you're watching on any of the platforms where you can, I've got the Hull City away shirt and there's the pattern, the black and amber pattern on the sleeves. And João Pedro, I think the ball's gone in off where that black and amber bit is on the sleeve. And as that's not his arm, that's where the sort of top of the sleeve is. I think that in the Premier League, at the very least, they give that as a goal. However, we lost 4-0. It's the 9th game of the season. Yeah, if we're going to complain about refereeing decisions against Norwich, then, we can go on all night. But the important ones were last year. It doesn't really matter this year. I think Pedro, of course, will be one of the only players that's actually disappointed by that. Maybe Kamara too to get an assist, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But it was nice that for just half a second, I was happy watching that match. I think when Pedro had scored. So, yeah.
It was another one, wasn't it, where decision making was, if we'd have been, made a slightly better decision at some different aspects of the game, then we'd have probably been back in it quite sooner. I think it was the Balumi chance. I think we'd only just gone 2-0 down, and Zambrano played Balumi through on goal. And if he'd have just shoot with your right foot, man, just have a dig. And he didn't. He put inside, and the chance had gone. And you're just thinking, right, that goes in. That's 2-1 pretty soon, and we're straight back in the game, kind of thing. It's those moments in games, I think, and like the penalty miss as well, I think seemed to sort of reinvigorate the entire team, and we really took control from once he missed that onwards. And then obviously the other goal sort of took the stuffing out of us, and Balumi was unlucky at the post. But this is what we were saying earlier. Like we didn't. It's not like we turned up and didn't create anything. We did. It's just that Norwich took their chances and we didn't. So
Norwich
you'd be more.
Norwich are a team that, well, to be honest, I think any team with sort of a bit about them, like Ant said, will be able to cut us open at will if they really want to. And the way Sunderland are playing, the way Burnley are playing, if we can get a point out of the next 2 games before we go and play Derby, Portsmouth and Oxford all in a row at the end of the month and the start of November, that'll do for me. That'll be fine. And then Derby, Portsmouth and Oxford are winnable games, definitely. But Sunderland or Burnley, I'd be happy with a point out of either, but I'm not going into it expecting anything.
It could easily be 2 big defeats and 3 easy wins, couldn't it?
It could be. I thought Leeds and Sheffield United would end up, well, combined about double figures, to be honest with you, but it didn't. And with hindsight, did we all sort of overreact a little bit to those 2 defeats? Yeah, I'd say so. In terms of what it meant, it was just the manner of the draws that preceded it that made it seem worse than it was. So if we can create things and, show promise in these games, then we can still take a positive out of it. This one, there's been a couple, like, Charlie Hughes getting on and doing all right, minus the mistake, Panda making some good saves, that kind of thing. But so if we can take the same positives away from Sunderland and Burnley, regardless of the scoreline, then, yeah, I'll be happy. I'll be, well, not happy, but I'll be content, let's say.
It's a weird position because I think for this style of play and whatever, we were the whole logic of bringing Volta in was he wanted to provide entertainment, and I think that at face value we're going to get that. If we lose
unquestionably
4 or 5-0, I mean, it was still an entertaining game. Like I say, we did turn up and just get turned over, did we? We created chances. It was an entertaining game. It was, but I think trying to play both sides of the fence. This is a style of football that I would much rather watch than some of the home games we had last season.
100%. I completely agree with you. I didn't think Rossini should have been sacked, but I cannot deny that if Adrian has said, well, I'm bringing Volta in because of the entertaining sort of, or that we haven't had entertaining attacking football, I 100% have been satisfied by the appointment of Volta, because that's
But I also think that to be a successful manager in modern football, you have to have, and I'll say this, and I've said this about previous managers we've had, you have to be adaptable. You have to have variations to your play, because not every team is the same. Not every game is the same. Circumstances change. The players you have available changes. So in order to win games, you sometimes have to do things differently. I think when, at home, by all means, go all out for it. I'm not really bothered. As long as I walk away from my home game going, that was a good game, I'm happy. But away from home, at somewhere like Carrow Road, I think, maybe just tighten it up a bit, just change it a little bit, a couple of tweaks here and there, just to try and get something out of the game. Because, at the end of the day, I mean, it's all well and good. We said this about Rossini. It's all well and good having an ideology, a way of playing and sticking to it. That's fine. But don't be stubborn to it to the point where it costs you points in the long run. Because as we saw last season, we missed out on the top 6 by 3 points. Like these games and these moments, like every point counts at this, especially when you're trying to, muster up a top 6 push, which I don't think realistically we'll be doing this season. I think we'll be mid-table. But these decisions have to be. You've got to look at the players you've got and the style of play and going, maybe we need to tinker that a little bit. And we might see that come January. I mean, it's still early in his tenure. We've not played 10 games yet, so we'll just see how we get on.
I wouldn't mind a clean sheet every once in a while, though.
Don't think we'll get over. I cannot see us getting over 10. Definitely not more than 10 this season. Clean
How
sheets.
many did we have last year?
I think we had quite a few.
I can't. I'd be able to check on my home computer, but I'm not at home, so I can't.
Fine. I'll count.
We'll probably have between 10 and 20, I'd imagine.
Come back to me in 5 minutes.
But as long as I think Volta's style of play at the minute is, I'm not bothered if you guys score 2 because we're going to score 3. But your only problem is that when you don't score 3, it doesn't work. So, Pompous. Now we've scored a couple, and changed his mind on short corners. No, because some still end up in the back of our own net. So
11
clean sheets.
Beat me to it.
Yeah, that's not as many as I thought, to be honest, because you look at those and the amount of games we won 1-1. Rossini thinks you can win a game by drawing 1-1, but yeah.
I know. Well, I knew the number was sort of high single figures, sort of low.
It's Allsop's fault. We'd have 20 if it wasn't for Allsop. The amount of games where we didn't have pretty much any real threat against us at home, and Allsop would just, I'll let that one in. Oh, I mean,
You know
speaking
what?
of Allsop,
I feel like Adjan's
Yeah.
probably had a bit of indication this season as well with how good Panda's been. He's probably sat there and gone, well, if he'd have played last, I know your owner should never ever interfere with team selection, and I don't actually ever think he did. I just think he tried suggesting in that Q&A that we'd signed a good goalkeeper, and he persisted on playing a goalkeeper who was out of form, and he found that weird.
garbage.
But yeah, it was very bad. And Birmingham fans,
Sorry, Ryan.
also don't like him. Not done very
Birmingham's
well.
number 2 now, isn't he?
He's behind Bailey Peacock Farrell, who also isn't brilliant. So it's.
I'll tell you, Joe, Allsop definitely is a number 2. That's a poo joke for anyone who didn't get that.
Would we have maybe gained 3 points ish if we'd have had Panda in from January onwards?
6 trillion%.
Yeah.
But then
Anyway,
you don't know how he'd have settled
Undeniably.
You don't know how he might have settled, though. He might have come straight in, and because he wasn't settled and fully comfortable with the style of playing with the group and in the city yet, and he might have just done a Rachoppy against Chef Wednesday in his first game, and then his confidence is shot to pieces.
Yeah, it's all
hypothetical, isn't it?
Yeah. Fact is, he's playing well this season. We've got 3 really good goalkeepers. Do we think that maybe the fact that we've conceded 4 in a game, he might try and get Rushworth in there?
Nah.
I wouldn't. No. Well, because it would have been more. I mean, we haven't really spoken about the QPR game, but the saves Panda made in the first sort of 10 minutes there, some were incredible. An incredible double save, especially, and then 2 1-on-1 against Norwich. I think, I said it last week, it's nice to have a goalkeeper that's actually any good, and he's been even better in the last 2 games. I don't even really feel like we've missed out on anything with Panda allegedly not being as good as Allsop playing out from the back. I think we're more of a direct system, but I don't think Panda's made a mistake with his feet since the Plymouth game. So I don't see any reason to swap him for Rushworth.
Yeah.
I just think that if we don't play Rushworth, I think he'll be going back in January, which then just makes his signing all the more bizarre to me, because what was the point? If they've not brought him in to be number 1, then why bring him in at all? I don't get this. He was available, so it just was an absolute no-brainer. I don't get that logic at all, because you've got 2 goalkeepers. So, of course, it's a strange signing, because then why did we bring Rachoppy in if we knew Panda was going to be number 1 anyway? And then
is that a Adjan signing, not a Volta signing then? And I think they're all Adjan signings, but I'd say
I think Rachoppy was a bit of both, in that Panda's pre-season performances didn't really set the world alight.
They were awful.
And look,
in my opinion,
we needed another keeper anyway.
Rachoppy's the Champions League goalkeeper, by the way, and he's our 3rd choice. He could have stayed at Young Boys playing Champions.
I expected Rachoppy to come in against Bristol City and take the starting spot straight away. And then Panda's just played well and not done anything wrong. So it's unfair to drop him for a goalkeeper who sort of kind of did against Chef Wednesday in his one outing. And then, we've got Rushworth, who just is sat twiddling his thumbs on the bench.
Well, you'd imagine that the club would be considering chucking Rachoppy out on loan or something in January. But if Brighton aren't happy that Rushworth's not playing, then they won't be doing that, because Rushworth will be going back.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking. I don't think Brighton are going to be best pleased that they've sent him in and he's not playing.
Yeah, I think probably already displeased at the amount of games he hasn't played. Even up until January, I think if they had the option to recall him now.
And this isn't me saying that Rushworth should be playing, by the way. If there's anyone watching this thinking, why does he want Panda out? Panda's been absolutely brilliant, and I think he should be starting. I'm just saying we shouldn't have signed Rushworth in the first place.
It's another odd one, isn't it? We've had quite a lot of odd signings.
Because we just like paying players wages for no reason, apparently.
We do. That's a good point. Maybe that's the reason we're always on the brink of FFP, is because we sign about 5 players that we don't need.
That Premier League wage, you just want to come here? Yeah, come on.
Fine.
Well, on Twitter today, the point was made about Finn Burns. Will we see anything of him now? I don't think so. Not now Hughes is fit.
Man City happy that he's not playing? Of course they're not.
I think the situation might develop potentially with Maka going elsewhere. I know teams were in for him in summer, weren't they? And then if Hughes gets into starting 11 and Maka struggles to get in the starting team and thinks, bloody hell, I'm not having another season of sitting on the bench, then he might be trying to get out of us in January, and then Burns would just be that backup centre-back, wouldn't he, along with Smith.
Along with Smudge, yeah. I was saying to my dad in the car coming back to uni today when Stan Ashby got called up for Ireland under-19s again. He'll get a League Two loan or a National League loan in January, surely.
I think there's a lot of players we've got here that we probably expected to go on loan and didn't, like Harry Vaughan. Very surprised he's still here.
Yeah. Well, like
Simons probably will at some point.
I disagree. Walter likes him.
Yeah, I think he's okay, Simons, when he's come in.
Yeah.
I think he seems to understand the system as well. I don't think we'd be looking at getting rid of Simons.
Well,
unless there's up in the pecking order and then it pushes Simons down.
Cynic will.
No, Cynic will not. Cynic will be here for his life.
He's got a decision to make, Adjan, now, because January is this his last year of contract in it?
Yes.
So we either sell him for something in January or let him go for free, and then he really has been a really bad transfer. At least try and recoup something for him in January. Just surely a Turkish team are going to want to take him.
Pendikspor, that's what we think, right?
Don't play him. Even if he's fit right now, do not involve him in any game so he stays fit. And then when January comes around, he's not injured and he can go. Just let him go. Just admit defeat on the transfer. Dogan Cynic has not worked out at all. He's on massive wages. We paid nearly $5 million for him. Horrendous signing. Just recoup what you can from him in January and just let him go.
Actually, if Cynic is at the club, then I can full-heartedly say that Longman is not the worst winger at the club. So actually, yeah, I think we should give Cynic a 10-year contract.
But we don't know how good Cynic is because he doesn't play. We can't say he's worse than Longman because we've not seen him. What's he played? Less than 5 games? He's been here for 2-3 years.
Cynic has played 13 games, 2 of them starts.
I think we'll probably come off injured in both of those. Could well have done.
He came off injured in at least one.
I'll never forget the assist he got for Ryan Christie, Cyrus Christie at Rotherham away. That was proper good stuff.
I'm having a look. I want to see actually how many minutes he's played for Hull City.
It's about
he's played
4.
367 minutes.
I mean, this podcast's been going longer than that. So this is really not impressive, is it?
He's played what's that? He's played 17 more minutes for us in 3 years than he did on loan from us for half a season at Hatay Sport.
Just awful. Awful.
Anyway,
but we don't want to talk about Cynic again. We do it every week. It's like he's a new Wilkes.
Because Wilkes was regularly playing and was poor.
But we say the same thing every week.
Yeah, we've always got to have one.
Anyway, Harry Vaughan, you mentioned him going out on loan. I thought he'd be a shoo-in to go out on deadline day, but I know, people know I get on quite well with Harry, and I just want to say this hasn't come from him. This has come from elsewhere. A couple of days before deadline day, there was nothing in the pipeline. So if he was going to go out, it was going to be last minute like it was in January. And that, to me, just seems so strange. Because we've got a young player here who was in the first team, but now he's...
But he did do very well at Bristol Rovers, though, did he? I don't think Spell was very productive.
It wasn't, but there was a lot in that in terms of moving away and coming into a team halfway through the season. There can be a lot of different factors in that, but it is just a fact. It didn't work, and Harry's admitted himself that it wasn't what he wanted to get out of it, but it was still a learning experience for him. But yeah, it just seems so strange to me that we've got this player who looked good when he played for us back end of not last season, but season before. Played a bit more of a bit part role first half of last season, but then we just didn't get him out on loan at the start of this season, and he's training every day with the under-21s now.
But there's a lot of youngsters that we all probably should be seeing going out and playing regular football. And Sellers Fleming should have gone somewhere. Jarvis, we all said as the moment that he was brought in, once we brought reinforcements in on the wing, there'd have been no reason for him to have been here. So his recall purely was to fill a spot in our squad for a few weeks whilst we sorted ourselves out in the transfer market, and now he's just in the under 23s. Like he's I think he's one of our most promising up and coming youngsters. And if as soon as we brought, well, I know the two wingers came in really late on deadline day, so it's hard to then say, right, off you go for Jarvis kind of thing. But I think in January he definitely needs to be looking at going somewhere and playing regularly because he's a good
Jarvo's in the last year of his contract as well.
It'd be a shame to lose him because he does look good. He showed Amir up, didn't he, on the wing? Actually looked like a proper winger.
On his weak side as well, can I add? Will Jarvis is one of the best wingers and attacking players I've ever seen at under 21s level. Him and Jim Sims are unbelievable players, and it's a shame that for Jim it never worked out. But yeah, Jarvo's got a year left on his deal. We've got an option to extend it, but he's 23 now, I want to say.
I don't know. Young. He's young.
No, 20. He'll be 22 in December.
But he's not that young then.
Yeah, but after 20, well, after this is what Jarvo from 18 getting his pro, 19, 20, 21 when he's 22. Like, so few players get that long when they're not playing week in, week out. The exception to that is Matty Jacob, and he's waited for his chance with injury and what have you, and he sort of got it last year. But yeah, it's a really, really strange one with Jarvo. Then Adjun's saying in that Q&A, he's an important player for us.
Well, he's not going to say we don't need him. I guess he'll just.
Well, he was. We needed him to play winger whilst we had no wing. Yeah. He was important for a few weeks.
Yeah, he's only going to have that breakthrough because I think in left back you've usually just got two, and of course Giles
last year we had 6 and they were all injured.
Yeah, but
it was.
I think Longman and Cynic. Well, Cynic's not going to play, but Longman's coming back. We got Kamara, Balumi, Miller, and Muller. It's going to have to be quite an injury crisis for him to play.
Does Hughes start from now on? Do we think?
Yes,
I'd say so. I saw enough in that cameo off the bench. Well, the half.
He looks far better going forward.
Yeah, and we've spent so much money on him. Of course, he's going to play.
Yeah,
it's unquestionably he would have played as soon as he was fit. If he was fitter sooner, because I think he had his injury. But I don't think the idea was to spend £5 million on a player in the Championship and then play Sean McLaughlin ahead of him.
Giles, do we think
he'll be in at some point, but he needs to
prove it a bit?
Yeah.
I think eventually Ryan Giles will come back in at left back, but for the minute, Drama, he's done well. And against QPR, though, he was great going forward, scored the first, played a big part in making the second.
Yeah.
But then defensively, I think in these last 2 games, we've lost some of that solidity that he initially showed. So I think Giles will come back in there. It's just a case of when Giles gets that chance, do we see better defensive play from him than what we saw and a bit more going forward from him, which we expect to see from a player like Ryan Giles.
Yeah. I mean, he's still, if you go back to January, pretty much every Championship club would have wanted to sign Ryan Giles as a left back, or at least maybe the top 3 or so. Of course, Leeds wanted to sign him, and it's just a shame that we've signed him, one of the best young left back talents in the Championship, and it's just not worked out for us, of course, when we've had him, even though he's been very good elsewhere.
I admired Giles's honesty though about the Middlesbrough stuff, and I hope there's a lot of people scripting apology emails to Baz Cooper as we speak for saying that there was never anything in it, because there quite clearly was. The fact it was so sustained, reported from both sides, and Tan even said, "Look, we don't want him to go." That was a clear indicator that there was a possibility he could go. And I'm glad Giles is still here, and I want to see it work. And like I say, I admire that honesty of him saying, look, there were discussions. I'm not going to lie about it. But Hull City have invested a lot of money into me. I'm going to say it bluntly because it's true. And I want to prove to everyone that they've made the right decision doing that. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else about the Norwich game? I'd like to just bring up some stats on how many times we've conceded 4 goals recently, because it's not really that common. Do you know?
Did we concede 4 any time last season?
Well, I was just going to ask you, do you think we did? But we didn't. We
3
didn't.
was the most, wasn't it?
Was
Joe,
the last one Sunderland 4-4?
Well, that's the last time we conceded 4, but it's not the last time we conceded 4 or more. No, that's complete nonsense.
Did we get thumped?
Ignore that. But the time before that, we lost 5-2 to West Brom, but that was before, under Arveladze. So the senior never conceded 4 and lost a match. He only conceded 4 once. And then before then, 5-0 to Bristol, second last game of the 2022 year.
What a day
4-1
out
to
that was.
Fleetwood in League One. And then so we've actually had 5 games where we've conceded 4 goals or more in the last 22, 23, 24, now the 25 season. So 3.2 seasons, 5
Since
times.
September 2020.
Yeah, but the McCann season, 2020, when we got relegated, 6 games where we conceded 4 or more.
Were they all in the last 6 months of the campaign as well?
I think
Leeds, Stoke, Wigan.
Mm-hmm. Brentford.
Was there another Brentford. So it was all February.
4-4 against Swansea.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh God.
That Brentford game was the signal of what was coming, though, wasn't it? We all knew.
Day after deadline day. Day after deadline day, Bowen and Grzycki both gone.
Are we the scorers of the worst ever goal scored from the halfway line? We might be.
Nah, I think other people will have done similar things.
Yeah, but like normally, if you score from the halfway line, that's quite impressive. But Tafazzoli was just an overhit through ball, and Raya. Was it David Raya? He's pretty good.
David Raya in goal.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a throwback. He was.
I think a lot of people forget it though because it was Ryan Tafazzoli, and who really cares?
Tafazzoli, that was.
Fenerbahce lost 5-1 pre-season. Donny lost 4-0 in pre-season. But it's pre-season, so it doesn't count. How many times have we said this?
Well, it's every episode I keep saying it. Yeah, I just want to draw a line under the Norwich one and think. I mean, it's pretty much answered my question: is Volta playing this way, or is that defensive unsolidity something that he's going to work on? No, and I think we're probably going to play exactly the same way in 2 weeks, even though most managers, we've lost 4-0. Why did that happen? Let's play a different way the next match. Volta is going to double down at 100%. And you've got to, even if it's not a good idea, you've got to respect him for his integrity in that, at the very least. I mean, Joe, if you were the manager, what would you be doing over the next 2 weeks because I think they're going to Turkey on a sort of summer training camp light almost.
Yeah, they are right there. They go out they go out tomorrow and they're back next Monday. I can imagine after they've been in Turkey, Walter will give them what? I can imagine he'll give them their land back on the Sunday. I'd imagine he'd give them Monday off just to sort of be with the families and what have you. But I think he's just got to be sort of, like Ant said earlier, a little bit more adaptable, a little bit more pragmatic in terms of when we are getting cut open easily / playing a decent team. Don't be as gung-ho, chuck everything at it.
It's just who he is, though, isn't it?
It doesn't matter if we concede 64 because we'll score 65. We can't. That's not sustainable in the Championship. No. And there just needs to be a little bit of sort of a wake-up call for Walter and his coaching team to sort of be alert to that. And if, we need to shut up shot a little bit and sort of weather a storm, let's say, we need to do it. And if it has to be we play a game where it's waiting for a lucky break on the counter, that has to be the way of the Championship sometimes.
Fair. And just more practice on short corners.
Listen, right, is the thing with short corners, as long as we end up scoring more than we concede, then whatever, but at the minute that's not the case. I think it's listen, I'm not too at home. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If he wants to just go all out attack at home, put like 6 strikers on the pitch, do it. Like I just at home, I think, especially for the atmosphere, we need goals.
We've got 6 strikers to play all at once.
Yeah, but
we've got 6 forwards. Forwardish players.
Put 3 strikers on, put the 2 wingers, that's 5, and then have Abdush in the 10 behind, that's good enough. But I think the atmosphere at home, I think this is a discussional topic as well, because this is reared its head. With obviously the discussions of possibly having goal music, which is abhorrent and should never ever be discussed again. Disgusting. But the atmosphere at home does need to change, I think. And I don't know if it's a case of just because we've been so poor at home for so long that people are just turning up and watching us pass it around the back 4 and risking it a bit and just thinking, oh God, here we go again, kind of thing. And I mean, it's easy to forget we've only won 3 games in 2024 at home, and I think that has a massive part to play in it. So when you come into a home game expecting not to win, your atmosphere isn't going to be that great. And fan bases, especially ours, we've always been reactive. So big challenges, consistent pressure, creating chances, we're loud. That it happens. But obviously, I think with the Cardiff game, I think maybe a bit of expectation that we were going to beat them anyway, sort of dulled it down a bit or something. But to get atmosphere going on a consistent basis, I think we need to start scoring a lot of goals at home, and I think it'll come in time. So yeah, at home, go for it. But I think away from home, we do need to be against the better teams. Certainly, just be a little less naive and just sort of just make it a bit more solid at the back so that we're not leaking as many, because goal difference is worth a point as well. We've gone from having positive goal difference to minus. We won 3 on the bounce, got into the positives, and then we just got hammered by Norwich, just put it back down to negative again. So in the grand scheme of things, I think it won't change. So it's a pointless discussion topic. But yeah, I would like to see us shore up a bit more away from home. But
I mean, he's not stupid, is he? Tim Walter's not stupid. I think at a certain point, maybe it'll be 20 games, maybe it'll be 45 games into the season before the last one. He'll probably think, well, considering that I don't have quite as good a squad as like the Hamburg one he had, where they were supposed to finish top 3, this isn't a top 3 side. Maybe I do have to be a little bit pragmatic. I mean, if we lose the next 4 games or 2 games, 4-0, I think Ajun might have a word, but Tan or someone sensible might just say, maybe you do need to work on it just a little bit for some of these games. But then is that not
them getting accused of interfering?
I don't know. Maybe more the coaching staff would say that. Maybe Andy Dawson as well. Someone like that. But yeah, it's like an experiment, really. We've played. It wasn't boring football, but conservative football in that we didn't really ever try and score like 6-7 goals or have 10 open chances with Rossini. It was, well, let's try and win with a sort of possession base and just not outscore them, but make sure we don't concede many and just for the Gene Delancey.
Rosinia was organised and methodical, whereas Walter is just chaotic and
it's and if it feels like Adrian said, oh well that didn't work, we'll just do something completely different. Yeah, and one of them will work eventually. Like next season, we'll have Allardyce as manager. Yeah,
I want up top. I want Kevin Davis. In the midfield, Kevin Nolan.
Sign Andy Carroll from Bordeaux. Have him up front with Bedje.
Jussi Jaskalainen. Sammy Lee. Frey Bentos.
It does surprise me, though, that we've got a big strike force that are good at holding up the ball and we don't really use that direct option more. Yeah. I think that when we get at moments in the game, I think it's okay to stick to this sort of playing our way out of the back if there's an option to do so. I think when we get pressed to a point where it's obviously not possible anymore, then please go direct rather than give the ball away, because there'll be there's been loads of goals this season have been preventable. I think that was the same last season. It's just that sometimes the decision making when playing out from the back it needs to be better at times. Like sometimes you just got to admit defeat and go, all right, they've pressed us to a point here, just get rid of it. Let's just safety first. And when you've got someone like Badir up top, why not? Because he's good at holding the ball and bringing others into the game. And I think when a team presses high, it's exploited space back there. If Badir does manage to successfully hold it up, you're probably 4-on-4 of their defence, because they've all pressed up to stop us from playing out. So it is weird that we don't sort of take that option more, but he's, like we say, he likes his style and he's sticking to it.
Do we want to look ahead to the Sunderland and Burnley games, or will it just be? I'm not actually sure which one's
far away.
It's too far away. Who are we actually playing next? Is it Sunderland or Burnley?
It's Sunderland.
Sunderland. Okay. Don't like Sunderland. Never like Sunderland. Don't like Norwich. Don't like Burnley either.
We don't have a very good record against Sunderland at home.
Don't like QPR.
Don't like anyone.
And we don't normally do very well against Burnley.
I like Cardiff because we always beat them.
Yeah.
I very much
seven,
like
7 wins in a row against them.
Yeah.
I'll say, if you want your fix of football during the international break, get yourself down on Saturday, the 12th of October, to Bishop Burton for 11 o'clock. Go in the second entrance on the A1079 and don't get lost like I did the first time. And the under-18s, who are a good team this year, play Crew kicking off at 11 o'clock on Saturday. So if you've got nothing better to do and you want to watch some football, go down there. David Myler's the manager. See what Ramel Carter's actually like as a player for yourself instead of just watching TikTok highlights of him. Zach Jagielka, 15-year-old Bobby Moore at centre-back. See what they're all about.
I think I'm out drinking that day. I think that's all I'm doing. And normally I'm
out drinking in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'll be.
Oh, you are, right.
I'll be having my hair cut, going straight to Bishop Burton, going straight home, having a shower and going out drinking. What a day.
Nice. Anything else to mention?
The club have just tweeted about Turkey, actually.
Oh, yeah.
The squad will travel to Turkey tomorrow for a, quote, 5-day team bonding camp.
Team building exercises and stuff. Little quizzes and...
That clip that they put on TikTok when they just landed in Turkey in pre-season and Valter's got him passing the balls up, over, under, then Seri sprinted from the back of the line to the front to do it all again.
Yeah, fun.
Matt Ingram with a wheelbarrow.
I quite liked the video of the City players. I think it's a trend where they're signing images of them from when they were younger.
Horrid photos.
Yeah, I quite liked that. Slater saying that Alfie Jones was ugly. That was the best bit for me. So I enjoyed a bit of banter. I think Liam Miller seems like a bit of a characterful bloke. When they were, I think it was him and Merlin were doing their FC25 rating predictions.
Yeah, he had better
quite like Miller.
Miller was fuming.
He was. And I could tell, the way that, was it Fisher, the Norwich right back, was playing against him. Miller was getting very upset. Fisher, sort of complete opposite way, didn't seem to react to anything at all, like a robot. And Miller raging and showing the ref his torn shirt and stuff. He seems quite vibrant. So yeah, I quite like Miller. I haven't got anything else to mention. Do we need to plug anything? And you're normally quite good at plugging.
Discord's still available to join. If any of you follow us on X, it's still the pin tweet at the top. You can just join with the link on there. There's quite a few in there. There's Christian, who you've seen on Tigers Talk, spruced it all up, so it all looks good for us now. There is one thing I will mention. Obviously, it was World Mental Health Day yesterday. Friend of our podcast, Johnny, I don't think I've actually had a chance to come out and say anything about him. He took his own life. He was obviously from Shoreham View, which is a Sheffield United podcast. He was a good friend of mine. He made the intros he's made our intros for the last few years. He is a kind of person that I'm going to use as an example where, you know, we kind of fully engross ourselves in football. It's emotional, and we kind of use football as our escape, but even sometimes that's not enough. So anybody that watches this, please do just like reach out to people. If you've got family members, friends, just check up on them. I think this is the biggest problem at the minute is we just don't check on people. Even sometimes when people share stuff and you're thinking they might be going through a bit of the run of the mill at the minute, maybe just check up on them, go for a coffee or something, or a pint, nip down spoons for a brekkie or something like that. Just some people I mean, I can talk from experience. I'm stubborn. I'm the kind of person who doesn't want to pass on my problems to anybody else because you feel like a burden. But sometimes that person reaching out to you and just saying, look, mate, you've been a bit quiet lately, are you all right? That can do wonders. So anybody watching this, if you've not spoke to someone in a while, a friend or a mate, you've not seen them, family member, reach out. And if you are struggling, then please do try and find something to try and cope. Andy's Man Club is absolutely brilliant. I still think to this day I probably won't be here if I didn't go to Andy's Man Club about a year ago. If you don't like talking to people close to you because your problems, you know, the kind of thing that you don't want people worrying about you, then go to Andy's Man Club because it's strangers. I found it so much easier because I didn't know those people for me to offload. So, you know, anybody that's struggling, please reach out and check up on your friends. That's the kind of thing I'd finish on.
Yeah, well said, Anne. I very much like what Norwich did about the minute unsilenced before the game. We had a minute silence for, you know, with the applause, but they were saying for the next minute, or just think about in the future, maybe when you get back from the match, you know, speak to someone, reach out to people. So I thought that was a very good thing for them to encourage. Joe, anything else to add, or should I just do the outro?
I'll just say nicely put, and really nicely put.
Yeah, well said. So everyone commenting in and liking, we really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week. We'll probably do a big bumper episode ahead of the Sunderland game. I think that's the right one. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.